Long ago, when the world was bright and full of stories, an evil wizard gained the power to touch the face of God. Narrativa, goddess of stories and weaver of our world, banished him to the void, but not before he stole a piece of her divine essence. With this newfound power, the wizard lay a dread curse upon all the world, the Glyph Purge, which struck from the minds of all mortals the knowledge of how to read and write. Now, all that stand between the Isle of Meotia and an age of endless ignorance are the bards, who tell stories of distant lands, exotic creatures, and brave heroes. This is one such tale.
Hello and welcome to Challenge Rating Zero, the latest and greatest Dungeons & Dragons podcast to hit the internet airwaves. I am Sam, your Dungeon Master, and I am joined as always by my longtime friends and adventuring companions.
Hello, I'm Brian, and I play Hektor the Gatekeeper.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I play Rilla Longshadow.
Hey there, I'm Alex, and I play Ruger Firehide.
And last but not least, we have the man who calls himself Michael, but who we call Parker, Michael Parker, playing the Druid Zurabak. Say hi, Parker.
Hi, Parker.
Fantastic. We're joined once again, dear listeners, for a tale of epic fantasy. When last we left our heroes, Hektor, Rilla, Zurabak, and the lawman Ruger Firehide were in the frozen north, the Shatterbark Wood, trying desperately to track down the skull of a giant, the next ingredient they need to cast the spell to end the Glyph Purge and fix all of reality. As it turns out, the only creature ancient enough in all of the Isle of Meotia to know where one such skull could be found is the Dragon Kesk, an ancient nemesis of our heroes. They made contact with the dragon, who demanded that Ruger and the rest of our heroes destroy a terrible frostworm from the inside out, a creature that had been menacing Kesk in his exile here in the frozen north, keeping him from leaving. Our heroes bravely entered an ancient construct, an apparatus of Qualish, a barrel-shaped crab mech, and did, in fact, get devoured by a giant metal-clad frostworm. They raged through its innards, tearing it apart, and eventually found an egg chamber, which they detonated with a fireball spell after discovering that frostworms in their death throes explode in a giant barrage of bone shards and ice. The explosion proved cataclysmic to this giant worm that had been menacing their dragon nemesis. And as they crawled out, Kesk took advantage, slaying this worm whose catastrophic death throes left a crater in the battlefield and threw our heroes far from the site of the battle, destroying completely the mech that they were hiding in. And as Kesk loomed large over his now slain foe, a gap in the blizzard raging around them allowed him to see for the first time since they arrived Hektor, Rilla, and Anthony Geist the Stricken in the company of Ruger Firehide. Now, Zurabak this whole time is wisely kept out of the fray, staying back out of this giant crab mech, not going on this mission into this giant frostworm, and has instead watched the proceedings from the thick clump of pines just outside the battlefield. He sent his faithful servant Snake in supersized, incredibly powerful form, in to have a lovely kaiju fight. Snake has been horrifically wounded by this blast, and Zurabak has rigged some of these trees with his druidic magic to erupt in an even more violent display than normal. And that's where we left things off last time. We join our heroes now in the frozen tundra just north of the Shatterbark Wood. Hektor, Rilla, Ruger, the familiar Rutherford, B. Hayes, and the stricken Anthony Geist are laid out upon the frozen ground. The wind howls, cutting through your winter clothing and biting even those who have cast spells to safeguard themselves against the cold. Driving ice and snow blur the line between sky and ground in the horizon, and the only thing attracting your attention as you pick yourselves up among the shattered wreckage of the crab mech you were once piloting is the looming shadow of the great worm Kesk as he slowly approaches your party. So, of course, we're going to cut to Zurabak. Zurabak, you're in the tree line. You have given yourself quite a wide berth from all the carnage and chaos going on out there in the tundra, and you have rigged a nice booby trap with these exploding pine trees, weaving several together to erupt at the slightest provocation as you give yourself more space. What are you doing?
Watching. Waiting.
So you are close enough to watch what is going on out there.
Listening. Waiting.
Okay, great. Why don't you, just for funsies, roll me a listen check so all the listeners of this podcast can hear the insane number that you're going to tell me.
Well, I only rolled an 11, so that comes out to 34.
Excellent. With that insane listen check over the roaring winds of this blizzard and over the distance between you and the rest of the people in this scene, you will hear everything with perfect clarity. Your servant Snake lies battered, bloodied, forgotten for the moment by Kesk, by this enormous crater the frostworm left when it detonated. What is Snake doing?
Hiding.
Fantastic. Why don't you have Snake roll me a hide check as he tries to slither away undetected.
And he has a negative from being fuck huge.
Mm-hmm.
There's his hide. Well, he rolled a 19, so that comes out to a 23.
Nice. All right. So Snake slithers into some piled up snowbanks and tries to make himself scarce, as horribly wounded as he is. And we'll say, just in case some shit goes down, Zurabak, you are about 100 feet from where your companions lay. Now, Hektor, Rilla, Ruger. The great green dragon Kesk slowly approaches you through swirling clouds of snow, and his great voice parts the howling of the driving wind as he says, "I must commend you, little knight. You have done well. I knew when you first approached me who your companions must be. No one would know where to find me, save that old witch Gator and the tiny mortals that assisted her in defeating me last time. But, little knight, you have spoken truth and served well. Our agreement is still valid, and I will tell you what you need to know before I rend your companions limb from limb. You came seeking the skull of a giant. I told you in ages long past, the giants came to these frozen lands searching for metal from a fallen star. They could not find enough to work with, and so most of them left, but one remained. He was driven mad by his obsession with this metal, and used the trace amounts to augment the creatures native to this horrific frozen waste. That is what made the worm you and your companions just fought. But the legend among giant kind, before they became extinct, was that he found one blessed shard of this star metal, and he tried for the rest of his life to forge it into a weapon. He built a smithy deep under the ice of the northernmost point of this island. Over the years,
it became overgrown with layers and layers of snow until it became an iceberg in its own right. He toiled for decades, trying to heat the metal in his forge and to make it yield beneath his hammer. The giants told stories of the final product of his labors. A hammer they named Starfall, the shard of heaven. I believe this poor mad giant still lays within his smithy deep beneath the ice. That is where you will find your skull, little knight. And with that, our deal is done. Now, since you have served faithfully, turn your back upon these maimers, these savage brutes who bound me to the earth like a common reptile, who stole the sky from me, and your life will be spared.
Well, Kesk, I can't do that. I was earnest when I said I came here at the behest of Protos. I came here as a protagonist, and my companions are protagonists, chosen by the gods themselves to represent humanity in its darkest hour. So no, I will not turn my back on them, but nor should you consider whatever vengeance you have in mind upon them. They have a greater purpose to serve, and so could you.
A greater purpose. A greater purpose? I care not for the affairs of tiny mortals scurrying across the face of this island. I am the last of the true dragons. I am the last remnant of a greater age than you could imagine. When I came upon these pitiful creatures you travel with, they insulted me. Is that not right, barbarian? Am I not a fucking oaf? Are you not here to keep the gate against my evil ways? You ripped the flesh from my bones. You took pieces from me. I ask you, little knight, if someone pulled your arms from their sockets and banished you to the farthest corner of this isle, trapping you there, what lengths would you go to for vengeance? What punishment would be appropriate for so horrific a crime against your person? It cannot be suffered without a price being paid.
Well, from my understanding of the story, the price was paid. You infiltrated someone else's lair, and you paid the consequence for your own action. I'm sorry that Narrativa deemed that her protagonist would strip you of the ability to fly, but it never would have happened had you not taken it upon yourself to invade Gator's lair. So if you want to talk about prices paid, Kesk, let's talk about that.
You do well to mind your tongue, little knight. Had I not deigned to kill you the moment you arrived, you'd not be here to show such impudence.
Kesk, the truth is, you are a fucking oaf. No, I don't like you. You don't like me. We're not going to change that, and that's fine. If you wish to kill us right now, you could do so easily. None can match your power. Here. None here can match your power. But the forces that we are fighting against, not even you could stand up to. We need to complete our quest, or else everything, including the last dragon, will perish.
You seek to spare me destruction, gatekeeper, but I ask, is death not a better fate for one as glorious as I? Death before the dishonor, before the insult you have subjected me to. I lay at your mercy beside Gaeta's lair, and instead of putting me down, instead of ending my life and sending me to join my ancestors in the void, you imprison me on the earth. Perhaps I'd rather the forces against you succeed. Perhaps I'd rather all the world end than to go on like this. Unless you can give me back the sky. I do not see any reason to spare your lives.
Well, I guess that is something we could discuss, considering us mere mortals might have the ability to do that. But I don't know if we should, Kesk. I mean, you're this big, bad, terrifying monster. Why should we give you the skies back?
If you kill us now, you will never see the skies again. And then you will die. And the last dragon will be gone. No remnants, no memory. The only way you have a chance at the sky once more is if you spare us and let us finish our quest.
You have taken from me, wounded me. If I were to spare your lives, a price must be paid. On this I will brook no argument. I bring to you, gatekeeper, my terms. You will submit your flesh to me in payment for your crimes, or I will devour every one of you, and then turn my attentions to the college that you swear your allegiance to, and my breath shall fall upon all you hold dear like a dread rain, and I will bask in the glorious cries of the dead and dying before the light is swallowed up by the darkness. You are not in the position of power here, mortals. You will pay my price, or all will fall. What will you give to see your task complete?
Hektor steps forward and holds out one of his arms. Take what you will.
I think this is a good spot for everyone to roll me some diplomacy checks. Well, I guess for Ruger and Hector to roll me some diplomacy checks. Just to see where we're at in this pivotal moment.
Well, I did roll some heat. So 18 plus 9 is 27.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I got a 23.
For a combined 50?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
not how it
that's
works.
what that
but
means.
I
No,
love the
that's
gumption.
what that means.
Love the gumption. Kesk steps forward, his powerful form crunching through the ice and snow. His sinuous neck curves elegantly, and his massive head, as large as a wagon, looms over you, rippling with barbed, virulent green scales, an enormous frilled crest sprouting between his eyes and running down the length of him, his long tail swishing back and forth behind him. And you smell the reek of chlorine gas emanate with his every exhalation, which flutters your clothing behind you in a rotten wind. And he says,
If what you speak is true, and the end of all things is nigh, if I face my doom at the hands of those arrayed against you, then I will never gain back the sky. So I will spare your lives that you may fix what is broken. But, little gatekeeper, your offer is accepted.
and he rears back and lurches his head forward and snaps his massive
Real quick,
jaws.
just before he does, Hector does form a middle finger on his head.
He snaps his jaws forward, his teeth like great swords, razor sharp, sever your arm at the shoulder, and he violently jerks his head to the side, and in one whip-like motion, your arm is gone. Blood fountains from the wound as you experience explosive blood loss. You immediately go into shock. You are at -5 health points, and you fall to the snow unconscious.
I rush to his side. Can I do that?
So does Rilla.
Yep. Rilla
Yep.
and Ruger, you rush to Hector's side as he falls into the snow, just pumping blood out of his massive wound into the snow.
Lay on hands.
Excellent. How much healing do you pump into your friend here?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and give him 11 points.
Excellent. You channel the holy might of Protos and flood your companion with his purifying, healing light. And before your very eyes, this massive bleeding wound closes up, heals over, the skin knitting itself over the stump, and your friend is no longer bleeding out, but the arm is still gone. Kesk rears up, and with a twitch of his head and the massive noise of his throat, swallows the arm of Hector the Gatekeeper. He looks at all of you and says,
Know this. We are not allies, and you are not spared my wrath. Now that the creature is dead, I will leave this place. Where I go is not your concern. What I do is not your concern. And if my eyes ever lay upon your faces, you will know the extent of my wrath.
and he turns around, his great tail swishing over all of you, blowing a gale wind that topples you all onto your backs, and he gallops off, striding like a jungle cat over the wastes and into the forests, and into a line of trees which fucking detonate like a claymore mine. Just an enormous explosion as a clutch of like 10 pine trees fucking erupt in a shower of razor sharp splinters that rip along his scaled form, and he falters a step but keeps running through the forest. Zurabak, just by chance, he like rushes 5 feet next to where you're standing and keeps barreling straight fucking past you.
Hit the trees.
And yeah, as the sounds of his devastating footfalls fade into the distance, the blizzard still swirling around you, you are left alone among the shattered remnants of the apparatus of Qualish.
I hand Hector a cure moderate potion. I don't say anything. I just hand it to him.
Hector, you are conscious thanks to that lay on hands. Do you accept this potion from Rilla?
Yeah.
All right. So, Hector the Gatekeeper, you now have one hand, one arm with which to wield weapons in battle and do stuff. We will get into the specific stat penalties that will provide at a later date. But for right now, you are alive and one-armed in the frozen tundra north of the Shatterbark Wood.
Just for the listeners at home, for what you're picturing in your mind's eye, it's the right arm.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was picturing, so...
Yeah, was this your dominant hand?
No.
Oh,
No,
Brian's left-handed, so Hector's left-handed. So you gave him the right arm.
That's
Fantastic.
pretty much how I...
Yeah, perfectly fine. So yeah. What do you all do?
I lay my head down.
I pat him on his big muscular back, and I say, Hector.
Casually start walking towards Snake.
Hector, you all right, friend? You okay? You need anything?
Got an arm?
Well, honestly, buddy, I know a lady who might be able to make you one. We could talk about that, but
That's really cool. Hector coughs up a little bit of blood.
I give him my last health point of lay on hands. Just give one more. Yeah, just give him one more little. Yeah.
And I do drink that cure moderate.
Absolutely.
What is that going to be?
2d8 plus 5.
Plus 5? Okay. 7.
The stricken
7. Nice.
The stricken approaches you all as you hunker around your wounded friend, and he has a tear rolling down his cheek as he looks at you. And Hector, his black eyes meet yours, and he says, Hector, that was the noblest act of sacrifice that I have seen in quite some time. To offer yourself up like that is truly the mark of a hero. You've done well, lad. You've done very well, and saved us all from a terrible fate. Thank you. Truly.
I did what needed to be done so that the sacrifices of our homes is not in vain.
I help Hector up out of the snow.
And when Hector says the sacrifices of our homes, he glances over at Rilla.
She just kind of quietly nods a little bit.
Ooh, that's good stuff. Sorry, I'm excited. Zurabak, you reach where Snake is hiding under the snow. He is bleeding profusely, and half of his scales are sheared off from the side of him facing that horrific explosion of the frost worm. He's got jagged shards of metal sticking out like pine needles from several places on his skin. And he flicks the air with his tongue and like coils up around you as if seeking solace in your presence.
I should bite you. Real good. But you did good. I cast Cure Moderate on him.
Fantastic. So you channel some of your healing magics into your animal companion and shore up some of his wounds. Zurabak, as you walk up to Snake, you see the just giant hole left in this stand of trees that erupted when Kesk the Wingless ran through it. There are shards of trunk as big as lances scattered in every direction, and many of them have giant globs of nearly black blood quickly freezing in this Arctic climate, shining all over them.
What kind of blood?
That would be dragon blood.
I could eat that.
Do you take some?
Oh, for sure. Shove some in the sack.
Do you make a snow cone? Make a snow cone. Come on.
Considering that you are Zurabak, I assume you take a shit ton, as much as you can.
As much as fits in the sack.
You get several handfuls of dragon blood ice, just frozen bits of dragon blood that you stuff into your sack. And you approach the rest of your party out in the tundra. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay, you amble over there. The Stricken looks at all of you and says, well, it's taken much, but we finally have the location of what we seek. I assume Kesk was speaking of that iceberg on the horizon. And he points his tiny gnome finger, and you see what looks almost in the blowing snow and ice like a palace. This giant, towering shard of white blue ice that sticks up prominently over the rest of the tundra here, right where the island ends and the frozen shifting seas begin. I suppose we should make our way.
I summon my rat-ass ghost horse.
You pull upon your mystical paladin abilities and summon from the ether Cole, your onyx stallion, with his smoky mane and tail, who alights upon the snow in sharp contrast to the blizzard raging around you and nuzzles you diffidently as he does.
I fucking mount him.
Hell yeah, you do.
Yeah. Does anybody else need a ride?
Hector lays his head back down. Just 10 more minutes.
I can I polymorph Hector into a 2-armed man for a little bit, just for like the ride back? Is that cool?
Jesus.
Look, doing so lets him heal as if he's rested for a night, and gives him another arm to hold on to that horse. Is that cool, Ruger?
I mean, I have no objection to you giving him an arm back. I mean,
I think you got to ask Hector.
What do you say, Hector?
I think that I need to get used to this.
All right.
Hector, you want to ride with me?
No, Hector says as he gets up and starts mounting the horse.
Yeah. You awkwardly swing into the saddle behind Firehide and grip him with your one very well-muscled arm. You all head out towards the iceberg. You travel over the frozen tundra, the blizzard still blowing a gale, sometimes completely concealing your goal on the horizon. But after about half an hour of travel, you make your way there. And you see this enormous pile of jagged ice towering into the heavens. It seems to be just barely perceptibly moving. You realize that you are on the northernmost point of the Isle of Meosha, farther north than any of you have ever traveled, and this bitter cold is cutting, but the view is fucking spectacular as you are looking out on a giant expanse of shifting chunks of ice writhing in the waves of the ocean, bumping against each other. It is a sea of white and blue, like someone left a pile of broken glass over the ocean. It is quite a breathtaking view. What you do not see is any way into this iceberg.
So we need to get inside of it? Like it's iced over? I'm trying to understand.
Indeed, Kesk said that the giant left behind here built his forge under the ice, and that this great berg grew around him.
Oh,
You
that's
have to
easy. And Rilla just turns back into a white dragon and starts burrowing.
Hell
I have a
yeah.
speed of 30 feet burrow, and I've got that for the next 11 minutes. So,
God damn.
I roll a cigarette.
Yeah, Rilla.
Well, she goes by the ancient fortress and, digs out Starfall. I'll just smoke a cigarette over here.
Yeah, you find a cleft in the ice to protect you from the wind, fire hide, and you roll up a cigarette. And yeah, Rilla, you take the form of a white dragon. Your skin covered with opalescent scales, and your head forming into a sharp white beak, and you dig with your sharp claws into the ice and burrow incredibly quickly, just hammering away, flinging enormous chips of ice and snow away from you as you make your way in. And it takes a while. It takes like 5 minutes of straight digging as you make this tunnel directly into the heart of this great iceberg. But eventually, you do nearly fall into a large chamber. You're digging straight down, and eventually the ice just stops. You tumble forward a bit before your wings can outstretch and catch you mid-fall, and you are looking at an ancient smithy. There are large rugs covering the floor that have long ago been covered over with pooling water that is now a sheet of ice. Everything in this room seems to be frozen over, but it's a massive chamber with a large metal forge. The fire's long dead, and a chimney reaching up into the iceberg that is long ago frozen over. There is a bed and a small table with a bowl full of frozen water that have obviously been unattended for hundreds of years. You see some piles of slag metal, a few tools and apparatus on a few workbenches piled around the forge. And in the very center of this room, in the middle of the floor, there is a pristine, perfectly preserved skeleton. It is of a 15-foot tall giant, wearing scraps of clothing frozen to its bones, and it is curled around what looks like a large silver hammer. What do you do?
I pick it up with my mouth because I'm a dragon.
You wrap your fangs around this hammer, and it is heavy and large, and It is strange looking. You are able to, after a bit of struggling, wiggle it out of the grip of this giant whose skeleton is wrapped around it. And it's a strange weapon. The haft is made of one solid piece of metal that is beautifully worked. It looks like almost like a column. It looks like there are twisting lines around it, and in between all of those twisting lines, spiraling all the way down this this black metal handle, there are runes carved along every inch of it. But the head of it is very strange. It is a shining, silvery metal that seems completely untouched by age, by rust, or wear of any kind. It stands out starkly in the sad, secluded room you find yourself in, and it is not shaped like a hammerhead at all. It doesn't seem to have been worked by any like processing. It looks like a rough, jagged piece of metal. One end of it is sort of naturally rounded and blunt, and it sort of tapers to a tip like a teardrop that has been affixed to this black metal haft. And you have a pretty solid idea that this is Starfall, the Shard of Heaven, the hammer that Kesk spoke of. You are able to haul it in your fangs. And yeah, that leaves the intact skull of this giant.
Smash it with the hammer.
The thread of destiny.
Let's see. Rilla's weaker than a dragon. What could carry this? Well, I mean, I'm lugging it out, but I have a one-handed barbarian who probably can't hold it.
Oh, well, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I have a path, and like, I don't want to sever the giant's head myself. I don't think, like, it's there. I confirm it's there. I come back out carrying this hammer in my mouth, and then I transform back into Rilla, and probably stagger to keep holding on to it. Right?
Yeah, it is fucking heavy. This thing is a long-handled warhammer, and it is fucking heavy. Absolutely,
And it's like is it like large size, or I'm assuming it's not
surprisingly enough. So this thing is not big enough that a giant would have used it in battle. It seems like the crafter was sort of limited by the size of the chunk of star metal they could get their hands on. And so instead of crafting some great giant-sized maul, it seems like what they did is made like what for a giant would be like a tiny forge hammer used for detail work. It's got a long handle to accommodate a giant's grip, but the proportions are all wrong as far as the size of the striking head. But it looks like a human could wield it one-handed.
Look at this cool hammer I found, you guys. Isn't it awesome? I think I'm gonna keep it. Or just like locks eyes briefly with Hektor as she almost drops it to the ground. No, I do. It just thuds into the ice.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a pause.
You try to.
She waited for eye contact, then she dropped it.
Yeah, you try to swing it up like to rest it on your shoulder, and it like falls behind you onto the ice.
This is like the perfect weapon for a sorcerer, isn't it?
I mosey over from the cleft. You find anything else down there?
Oh yeah, there's a giant skull, but this was more fun to carry out. You guys can go sever it from the corpse. I don't really want to do that. Maybe that's a Zurabak thing. Well,
Pass.
no? Okay.
Well, Hektor, would you like to go see a giant corpse? I mean, I guess you've seen them before, but You wanna join me down there, buddy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. You guys get out some rope and some climbing gear, and pretty quickly and ably are able to lower yourselves down this well-constructed shaft that Rilla has carved in her dragon form. And you guys, slip down to the heart of this iceberg, and
Ruger tries not to helicopter parent, but he's not very good at it, so it's kind of obvious that he's, keeping an eye on Hektor as Hektor climbs down.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a fucking awkward climb. Absolutely. Hector's like learning how to climb one-armed in real time, and you're trying to keep your distance, but you keep, providing additional backup as needed. And after a bit of struggling, you guys get down into this giant chamber, and you see what I described before. Hektor, you see the you see this forge of the last of the giants that you know of, here hidden beneath the frozen wastes, and you see this towering skeleton curled in the center of the floor in the remnants of his smithy.
Hektor drops to one knee and bows before the skeleton.
I go ahead and do the same thing, right next to Hektor.
Nice. You two bow and give this thing its due. And you do feel a moment of peace come over you as you take a moment to bow before this skeleton. You get the feeling that a weight has been lifted almost. There's a strange aura of peace around this place. After a moment, it kind of fades. What do you do next?
I chop off its head. Well, I get there eventually, but
No, you take your flaming axe and with delicate care remove the skull from the vertebrae.
one just clean
comes
swipe.
It comes off clean. You shear through the ice of the ages and through the bone of this ancient giant. And the head tumbles off, and you have in your possession a perfectly preserved giant skull. Congratulations.
Wow. I pick up the skull and look to Hektor, and
It is the size of a cauldron. You were like, it's like a giant ale cask. It's like as big as your torso. It is.
Can I use some of that excess rope to tie it to Hector's back for when he climbs?
Sure.
I have a better idea. Let's tie the bottom of our climbing rope to it, just like through the eye sockets. Then we just climb up, and then we pull it out.
Okay, that works.
You all get the skull out of the smithy, and it's great.
Fantastic.
Listen, stop ruining their fun.
I know,
So you get out.
We climb up, and then we haul out the skull.
Uh-huh.
And then that's where we're at.
And it's great and perfect. You guys get back to the top of the iceberg out of the shaft that Rilla has dug, and you haul this skull out behind you. And as soon as it comes into the light, Antony heaves a sigh of relief. By Narrativa's braids, I'd almost thought it was a trick. Finally, we have what we need. Oh, what a relief. The price was high. Terribly, terribly high. But now we have what we set out for, a week ago? And now I can reveal to you all that there is but one last component we need for this spell. One last mystical trinket we need to recover in order to get this done. And luckily, I believe Zurabak has already secured it. He turns to look at you, Zurabak. We need the blood of a dragon.
Well, that dragon went that way. I'm sure if we catch him, we can still murder the crap out of him.
And what of the frozen dragon blood that resides in your bag?
Listen, I was gonna eat that later. That's mine. How many times you gonna take things from me?
This will be the last time, actually.
You say that.
I do, and did. I suppose if we have to, we'll be walking back that way anyway. We can just get some more. But with this skull and the blood of a dragon, the 4 components we need to cast my spell are now in our possession. All we must do now is finish the cipher golem so that they can read my grimoire and somehow get our hands on the strand, and we can fix these holes in the world and restore the written word to the people. Congratulations, my protagonists. We have vaunted several obstacles in our path this day. Now let us get out of this cold and back to Everspring.
I shiver on cue. And then I summon my badass ghost horse.
I like that you summon and banish this thing just on every it's fucking
I mean, it's
incredible.
cold here.
Yeah.
Why should he hang out in a cold space when he could hang out in the ethereal or whatever?
No, that's excellent horse care. Good shit. So yeah, with the giant skull in your possession, you all stake out across the tundra again, heading south. You get to the outskirts of the Shatterbark Wood, where all of these horrific splinters of these detonating trees lay about you, still smeared with dragon blood. The stricken is sure to take a good few handfuls of frozen dragon blood, so that Zurabak doesn't have to fucking give any of it up.
I ate some of it off the ground.
Sure.
I slyly try a little bit of dragon blood.
Oh, you're part of the club now. Good
I
job.
feel like I have to, so I do, but I don't want anybody to see me do it.
Yeah, it's like now you're really part of the gang. Blood in, blood out, right? Good shit.
I just rolled an 18 on the dice to spot that. Let's double check what my.
We
So that's a 23
rolling
total.
spot checks.
I
Okay,
am.
well, I rolled
Yeah, you did.
I want to.
3 on the dice, so not looking good over
Well,
here.
I rolled a 9, so 29.
Yeah, you see Ruger Firehide eat some of this dragon blood.
Ooh, I rolled a 17, so that's a 19.
Yeah, you all see it. He tries to turn his back, and you all see it.
I just shake my head in shame.
So you all make your way a bit deeper into this wood, and finally you hear the voice of Gator. A massive alligator lumbers out from a stand of trees and says, "Well, it is good to see you all are still alive. That racket was terrible. I didn't know if I'd be seeing any of you again. Oh, my dear Hektor, you're missing some parts. Are you all right?"
I was eaten twice and blown up. No. No, I am not.
Well, that's perfectly fair, dear. Stupid of me to ask. If you all want to climb up, I can take you back to the swamps, and then you're on your way.
Yeah, let's get the hell out of this frozen hellscape.
You all scramble up on Gator's back, and she casts her incredibly powerful tree stride spell. And you all walk into one of these great trees, which groans a little dangerously as you walk into it, but thankfully does not explode while you're inside of it. And the world goes white. There's a rushing sound in your ears, and you all find yourselves. Your systems are completely shocked as you go from dry, driving frosty winds into the heavy, thick, syrupy humidity of the Briar Marsh, and you are back in the swamps. The buzzing of insects around you and the cries of teeming life fill your ears as you get to the outskirts of Gator's lair. She deposits you all and says, "Well, I'm glad I could be of help. If you need me for anything else that isn't, fighting one of the most powerful creatures on the island, you just let me know, dears. I'll be here."
Actually, I do have something to ask of you.
"Oh, what's that, Hector?"
The world around us is crumbling, and now there's a fucking dragon on the loose. On this side of the gates. But there are plenty of people here, still, that need help. We are gathering as many as we can at the College of Everspring. You uniquely have the ability to travel long distances in short times. I ask if you can please gather as many people from Bramble and any other towns like it around here and help them. Help them escape this place. For now, it will only be temporary, hopefully, but can you do that?
"Well, I think these old bones have a few more miles in them yet. That sounds lovely, dear. I'll take anyone who'll accept my help and not run in fear of an enormous alligator. I'll take them right up to Everspring, or at least as close as I care to go."
If you are able to do this soon, there will be a party traveling to Everspring that can pick them up for foot travel.
Yes, I sensed the circle of the serpent leaving this place. Dire times indeed. The whole world's upside down. I suppose this old lady can lend a hand.
And should you choose to, we have a place for you in Everspring as well.
Zurabak does the cutting motion across his neck, shaking his head.
Oh, I'm sure city life wouldn't really agree with me, but it is very sweet of you to offer, lad. Don't worry. I'll look after myself and get everyone I can to the safety of that college of yours. Worry not. Your message is heard.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You all were invaluable in helping me keep my lair free of that terrible cask. It is no problem. Bye now. And she turns and lowers herself into the broad pond before the entrance to her lair and disappears beneath the rippling waters, leaving you all alone in the Briar Marsh. You know the location of a standing stone portal here in the marsh. Do you go to it?
No.
Yeah, I agree now.
Cool, where do you
I
go?
need a nap.
We live here now.
Again? You already lived here once.
This is our lives
Yeah,
now.
but everywhere else is awful.
We just convince everyone else to go to Everspring, and then we just hang out here, camp out for a while.
That's pretty fucking funny.
Roast
Can you
marshmallows.
get everyone out of here? Zurabak hates him.
It's all an elaborate ruse. Yeah, no. I mean, I'll go to a standing stone. I'm good to get out of the frozen tundra as well as out of the boggy, mosquito-infested swamp.
Yeah. So you all set forth to the Standing Stone portal. You find it easily enough. You were given its location over your protagonist badges by the diviner. And you come across it in a particularly dense clump of mangrove trees whose long, spindly roots stick out like spider legs from the brackish black water beneath them. And through this tangle stands this, two standing stones with a slab across the top of them forming a gate. which activates as you approach, and you all are instantly teleported to the Standing Stone Circle in the Everspring Mountains. As always, Lore Master Holland stands within these stones, a worried look on her face, staring at all of you. She says, you have returned. We know of the terrors you faced on your journey, and by the gods, Hektor, what has happened?
I will give you only 3 guesses.
You got hungry. You felt you looked better this way. You got hungry.
I'm counting it off as he's at Zurabak's.
Well, I suppose that was indelicate. Forgive me. Your rooms are available as always, and whenever you are ready, the conspiracy can meet to discuss the finer points of your journey. But please, come, rest. You are, for the moment, safe again.
She opens up the Standing Stone portal leading into the college. You all filter in, make your way through the college, and you are back within the city of Everspring. You currently have all of the components you need to finish this spell, and as you leave the front doors of the college looking out onto the quad, Anthony Geist, the Stricken, says, well, now that we have the 4 components we need, we have to make sure they are kept under lock and key. They'll need to be kept safe until we can actually use them. Again, until the Cipher Golem is constructed and can read the spell from my grimoire, they will serve no purpose. I think the vault might be the safest place for them. What do you all think?
I can think of no place safer, says the Scrivener.
Bias.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm gonna go over there now.
Yep.
Zurabak. The knife, if you please.
Oh, no, you ain't getting that. That's my cutting knife.
Well, I certainly can't take it from you, and I also can't think of anyone who could, so I guess that's taken care of. The other 3 components, the skull, the Death's Head orchids, the dragon blood, those should be kept in the vault.
Mm-hmm.
Hektor, Rilla, your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know where would be safer, so that sounds fine to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Well then, I can depart for the vault immediately. I suppose, Ruger, you'll join me?
It'd be my honor.
You say as you hold a fucking giant skull in front of you.
I mean, you know,
tied to your back like a backpack.
It wasn't even that long ago. I was just talking shit with a dragon, you know? Like, what's a day in the life of a protagonist, you
know? Excellent. Zurabak, you're wandering off to what? Eat, drink? What are you doing?
Zurabak things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meat wagons.
Parker, I'm the dungeon master of this game, and you have to tell me what you're doing.
I have no idea. Zurabak's doing Zurabak things. I assume eating, scaring random citizens, things of that nature.
Okay, see, those are specific things that I can work with. So you go grab a handful of kebabs from a street vendor who does not question that you didn't pay for it, and you go make scary faces at children. That's great. As you fade off into the crowd in the distance, the Stricken and Firehide head off to the vault. Hektor, Rilla, what are y'all doing?
Oh.
Hektor just beelines for his room and goes and sleeps fucking hard.
And Rilla?
I go find my sister and my aunt, and I hang out with them, and I don't talk about what happened.
And you still have this fucking warhammer in your possession, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lugging it around with me and posing every once in a while. You know, I probably, when I see my sister, pose like nonchalantly with it, even though I've been like struggling the whole time just to show off. Yes.
As you head to the elven enclave of Lakeside and Hektor hits the sack, we come to the end. And that is where we'll end. Hello and welcome to As the Dice Turns, the podcast after the podcast, where we take a deep dive into our player characters' motivations, characterizations, frustrations, and try to get a better understanding of them as people. In this part of our show, we like to ask one of our protagonists a question and see if we can unearth some deeper truths about them. Today in the studio, we have Hektor the Gatekeeper, Keeper of the Gates and Bard Extraordinaire of the College of Everspring, Curator at the Hall of Whispers. Hektor, how are you?
I mean, you know, I've been better.
I hate to harp on this fact, but I think it must be said. You are missing your right arm. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's bad. I feel bad.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. It is pretty bad. I'm curious what drove you to make this decision.
What were the alternatives?
Well, let's talk it out. What were the alternatives?
We all die.
Mm-hmm.
He just kills us all.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe except Ruger. He enacts his pound of flesh on Rilla. I would have been fine, you know, morally speaking, letting him gobble up Anthony, but unfortunately we need him. And I'm not sure that there's enough of him to enact the price, or that he would give a piece of himself up. So, is either those things or me, and I made the choice.
You did. You did make the choice. You made a snap decision in a moment of high tension without talking to your companions beforehand or working out a strategy, and took the shortest, bloodiest path you possibly could, leaving yourself open to incredible physical harm. Kind of just seems like the path you've walked over the course of this entire adventure. Blood, carnage, self-sacrifice that's more than a little bit just bravado, maybe? Think that's fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
You're certainly center stage, which is where you want to be, right? And now you have this shining example, a receipt of your nobility to flash at anyone that questions your purity or devotion to the cause. It's pretty convenient.
Yes, losing an arm was an extremely convenient thing for me to do.
Well,
that is a great point.
I guess I just want our listeners to know that you got to keep these things in perspective, you know, and maybe it's not all bad, and maybe there is significant gain by doing something like this. In any event, Hector, I am terribly sorry for your loss. It was, as the Stricken said, a noble act, and if there's anyone we can trust to gauge the nobility of a person's actions, I am sure it is Anthony Geist, the Lord of the End.
Honestly, better him than you.
Yeah, now you're getting it. Sharon? Sharon, I think he's getting it. Yeah. All right, Hector. Thanks for coming out today. We appreciate the talk. I hope you and your phantom limb have a great evening. That's going to do it for us here on As the Dice Turns, the podcast after the podcast. Sharon and I would like to thank you for coming to our little show here. And until next time, keep those dice turning. Hey there, dear listener. Sam the DM here, checking in with the credits at the end of the show. Challenge Rating 0 was edited by the incomparable Audius Prime, a.k.a. Matt Sims. You can find more of his work at audiusprime.com. Music for Challenge Rating 0, including our amazing theme song, is provided by the harp wolf Danielle Williams. You can find more of her work at danielletaylorharp.bandcamp.com, including her album Why Are We Surprised When Seasons Change. Additional music for Challenge Rating 0 is provided by Justin Ra. You can find more of his work at justinra.com, including his album Age of the Spirit. If you want to find us on social media, we are on Facebook and Instagram at Challenge Rating 0. We're at Twitter at Challenge_0. And if you'd like to email us here at the show and send in any questions for As the Dice Turn segment, you can send any emails to challengeratingzero@gmail.com. Any questions we receive will be read on air. If you'd like to support the show, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/CR_ZERO. We've got some bonus content on there for you folks if you are interested. And if you can't support us fungibly, we ask only that maybe you take some time to give us a review, recommend us to a friend, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for listening. We're still trying to make the best show we can for you folks, and we're going to keep on keeping on. I hope you all take care of yourselves and each other out there. We'll see you next time.